Welcome to part 4 of our Start Dreaming tutorials. I see Cuthbert has managed to get himself in a pickle again. Connie, how do you put up with him? What a spanner. But with Connie's help, we can rescue him. This time around, I'll show you how to select and group your creations and how to scope in and out of groups. Luckily, someone left behind a block for us to use. Remember how to repeat clone blocks to create a bridge? Well, let's do that again. Move your view side on to the block and the gap. Hold L1, then grab the block with R2. Move it with the motion sensor function to create a clone. Just like last time, let go of L1 while still holding R2, then press the directional buttons to make more clones. If you rotate the first block a little before you clone it, you can make an arch. Use L2 to make the first block angle up slightly, then make the clone angle down. Press the left directional button to repeat clone, and the clones will line up to make an arch. Amazing, right? Let's quickly test that in play mode. Looks great. Switch back to edit mode, rewind time, and go to the next step of the tutorial. Now, you probably noticed that all the blocks, the original as well as its clones, were selected automatically after cloning. You can tell when things are selected because they have an animated dashed outline. But after we switched between play and edit modes, everything was deselected. So let's select them again. All you have to do is hover your imp over one of the blocks and press X. There's the outline again. Now do the same to the rest until the whole bridge is selected. Can you see how each block has its own outline, with a double line where they meet? That's because they're still individual elements. You can deselect them one at a time with X, but it's much quicker if you deselect them all at once with Circle. Give it a try. There's also a faster way of selecting multiple objects. Just select one as before, but this time keep X held down. Now move your imp to select the others. Better than selecting one at a time, right? So much faster. The great thing about having multiple objects selected is that you can manipulate them as if they were one object. For example, if all the blocks are selected, you can clone the bridge sideways to create a double bridge. Plenty of room for Connie to cross it without falling off the edge. Try it in play mode and move on to the next step. You know, this bridge would be really useful to help Connie cross to the next platform. Use X to select all the blocks again. If we're going to use this bridge a lot, we can make it into a group. That way, it will behave like a single element and you won't have to keep selecting all the blocks. Have you noticed the menu at the side of the screen? It appears when you have one or more objects selected. That's the context menu. The options it gives you will depend on the situation you're in. In this case, all the buttons relate to selected objects. Look for the plus sign. That's the icon for the group button. The number next to it tells you how many objects you've selected. You can use this button now to turn all of those blocks into a group. There we go. The bridge is now a single element. You can tell because it has one outline around it, so let's clone this bridge and place it between the second and third platforms. Just like before, hold L1 and grab the bridge with R2 to clone it. As always, remember to let go of L1. We don't need to test the bridge to see that it's not going to get Connie to the third platform. But don't worry, we'll fix that in the next step when you're ready to move on. Our bridge needs a bit of work if it's going to reach the next platform. This is the perfect opportunity to learn a new technique, scoping in. Scoping in means you can jump into a group and edit the contents individually without having to ungroup it first. And since you can only edit things inside the group, you don't have to worry about messing up anything outside it. Let's give it a try now. Select the bridge with X if it isn't already selected. Then find the Scope In button near the bottom of the context menu. Notice that it's showing you a shortcut for it, L1 and X. So hover over the bridge group, hold L1 and press X. Now you're scoped in. We can now edit all the parts as if it wasn't a group. If you want to really focus on just the group, you can hide everything else in the scene. Just use the Hide Everything Else button in the context menu. The icon looks like a closed eye. There's also a Scope Out button in the top right corner. This is how you exit groups. Try scoping out now. Select the button with X or use the shortcut, L1 and circle. That's it. Now scope back in again so we can fix the bridge. Just hover over it, hold L1 and press X. I think what Connie needs to reach the next platform is a staircase, so use the Move and Clone tools to create a new one. Our bridge needs a bit of work if it's going to reach the next platform. This is the perfect opportunity to learn a new technique, scoping in. Scoping in means you can jump into a group and edit the contents individually without having to ungroup it first. And since you can only edit things inside the group, you don't have to worry about messing up anything outside it. Let's give it a try now. Select the bridge with X if it isn't already selected. Then find the Scope In button near the bottom of the context menu. Notice that it's showing you a shortcut for it, L1 and X. So hover over the bridge group, hold L1 and press X. Now you're scoped in. We can now edit all the parts as if it wasn't a group. If you want to really focus on just the group, you can hide everything else in the scene. Just use the Hide Everything Else button in the context menu. The icon looks like a closed eye. There's also a Scope Out button in the top right corner. This is how you exit groups. Try scoping out now. Select the button with X or use the shortcut, L1 and circle. That's it. Now scope back in again so we can fix the bridge. Just hover over it, hold L1 and press X. I think what Connie needs to reach the next platform is a staircase, so use the Move and Clone tools to create a new one. Once you've built the staircase, test it out in play mode to make sure Connie can make it across. When you're happy with it, switch back to edit mode, rewind time, and move on to the final step of this tutorial. Is your staircase working? Fantastic. Now Connie just needs a bit more help to save poor old Cuthbert from his predicament. Luckily, you can clone your staircase group to reach the final platform. Use the clone shortcut L1 and R2 to copy the staircase group to the last platform. Don't forget to let go of L1 once the clone has been created. That's how useful groups are. If you select the group, you'll see a button in the context menu that saves the group as a new element. Saving a group as a new element means you can use it in other scenes or share it in the Dreamiverse. You can't do that in tutorials, but you can everywhere else. Now that you've mastered selecting and grouping, I'll leave you with a thought to ponder. You can also make a group inside a group. With that, I'll let you experiment. Once you're happy that you've mastered selecting, grouping and scoping, you have just one thing left to do. Go into play mode and take Connie and Cuthbert to the exit. Are you ready to get those creative juices flowing? This tutorial's all about making your creations beautiful. Now, this is Connie's front garden. But what's this? It's had all the colour, style and magic sucked out of it. But not to worry, Connie. We can help make the garden pretty again with the power of dreams. Just to start you off, all the lighting's already done. We can learn more about that later. And because I'm ever your servant, I've also grouped some of these objects just for you. It'll make editing them quicker and easier. So what does the garden need? Well, it could do with some colour, texture, and movement. Luckily, the coat, style, and effects modes are the perfect tools to do that. They don't create new objects. They modify existing sculptures and paintings. And they work on groups. With just a little practice, you can become a master of them all. So let's start by adding some colour with the tint tool. Open the Assembly menu with the square button and go to the Modes menu. Each mode has its own set of tools and options. The tint tool is in coat mode. It has an icon that looks like a pot of paint being spilled. Select it by pressing the X button. As you can see, the Assembly menu has now been replaced with the Coat menu. In the top row, you'll find Options and Helpers. Along the bottom, you'll find the tools. Now, which colour to use? Open the Colours menu in the top row of icons. These are colour groups. You can expand a colour group with X. Each group contains more shades that you can choose from. I'm going to find a green for the foliage, but if green's not your thing, you can experiment. Is the menu too long? You can scroll it by grabbing it with R2. Pick a shade, or if you fancy a more painterly or organic look, choose the tumbler colour at the end of the group. That will apply a random shade that changes as you work. When you've chosen a colour, you're ready to go to the next step. To add colour to our scene, we'll use the Tint tool, which has an icon like an airbrush. You can manually select it in the Tools menu. But in Coat mode, choosing a colour from the Colours menu equips the Tint tool automatically. See the airbrush icon on the tip of your imp. The Tint tool recolours objects, either tinting or completely covering their original colour. Just press and hold R2 to tint the objects at the tip of your imp. No need to select or scope into anything. The rounded clumps look a bit dreary in this scene. Let's add some colour. You can see that the longer you hold R2, the stronger the tint gets. And with a tumbler colour selected, it will cycle through different shades. If you make a mistake, you can undo using the left directional button. Or set your tool to subtract and you can detint. How do you do that? If you press triangle while the tool is active, your imp will change to an outline. So now it will remove tint instead of adding it. And that works on pretty much all of the coat, style and effects tools. Just press triangle when they're equipped to make them subtractive. Try removing some colour using subtractive tint now. Just hold R2 over the object. And to make the tool additive again, press triangle. Now that you've got to grips with that, you can colour in the whole scene with the Tint tool. Go wild! Use different colours to tint the path, rocks, river, grass, trees, and the little cottage. The Colours menu has all the colours you need. Just open a colour group and pick a shade, or the tumbler colour. Take some time to colour your scene. When you're done, move on to the next step. Good job. Now your scene is beautifully coloured in, let's add some texture to it. For that, we need to leave coat mode and go into style mode. To leave a mode, select the exit button in the top right of the screen. Or you can use a shortcut. Hold L1 and press circle. Just like scoping out of a group. Now use the Modes menu to switch over to Style mode. The Style mode icon is an S-shaped brushstroke. All sculptures and paintings in Dreams are made up of flecks, and Style mode is where we manipulate them. For example, notice how the objects in this scene look smooth. That's because their flecks are small and tightly packed together. We can make them more textured with the Looseness tool. Select the Looseness tool. It looks like a blurry circle. Now try using R2 to loosen some of the foliage in the scene. Don't hold back. As you can see, loosening sculptures and paintings means their flecks become more obvious. If you think they're getting too loose, press triangle to make the tool subtractive and tighten them up again with R2. Or you can just use the left directional button to undo. Don't forget to loosen up the river too. We'll need it in the following steps. Carry on loosening the objects in the scene. When you're happy, proceed to the next step. Wonderful! Connie's garden looks like a lovely painting. Let's look at the water now. Water has a reflective quality, so let's add some shine to the river. This is where the Finish tool comes in. Exit out of Style mode with L1 and circle and head back into Coat mode in the Water has a reflective quality, so let's add some shine to the river. This is where the Finish tool comes in. Exit out of Style mode with L1 and Circle and head back into Coat mode in the Modes menu. Next to the Colors menu in Coat mode, you'll find the Finishes menu. Select it with X. These finishes change the way objects react to light in your scene. Using finishes, you can make objects shiny, rough, metallic, or even translucent. Now you can choose your finish for the river. Let's see. Ah, yes. How about shiny wax? Wax finishes are translucent, and the shine will give the river a reflective surface that will catch the light. Apply the finish as before using R2. Remember that you can revert your changes by switching to subtractive mode with triangle or by using undo. Try editing the finish on other groups and objects in the scene. Continue to the next step when you're ready. Our river looks nice and shiny now, but something's missing. It doesn't flow like water does. But there's a magical tool for that in effects mode. It's called the Flow tool. Leave Coat mode if you haven't already, and enter effects mode. The effects mode icon has some twinkly stars on it. Alongside the Flow tool, you'll notice other animated effects that you can apply to sculptures or paintings. But for now, we'll pick the Flow tool. Its icon is a tap, or a faucet if you're from the US. Press X over the Flow tool to select it, and use R2 to apply it to the river. Isn't that lovely? In effects mode, you can preview the flow effect even when time is paused. But if you leave effects mode, you'll need to click R3 to see the effects in action. When the river's flowing at the right speed, you may notice something a bit odd. It's flowing the wrong way. Let's fix that using another tool found in Style mode, the Comb tool. Leave effects mode using L1 and Circle, then go back into Style mode via the Modes menu. The Comb tool icon is some wavy lines. Select it with X. Now we're going to make the river flow the correct way. How do we do that? You guessed it. Hold R2 to comb the flecks of the river so they go in the right direction. We're no longer in effects mode, so we can't see the flow effect animating. But just click R3 to start time, and you'll be able to see it again. The key is to move your imp in the direction you'd like the flecks to flow. A bit like you're combing the river's hair. Very stylish. Let go of R2 when you're happy with the flow direction. And now you can see the river is going the correct way. But if it isn't, just undo and try again. When you're happy with the speed and direction of the river, click L3 to rewind time. Then it's off to the next step. This scene is really coming together. Next, let's do something interesting with the chimney smoke. Move closer to the smoke so you can see the flecks clearly. These flecks don't look very smoky, do they? Let's change that. If you're not already in Style Mode, head there now using the Modes menu. Open the Flex menu with X. It's the button in the center of the top row. Now choose a fleck that looks smoky. How about the Dots fleck? When you choose a fleck type, it'll automatically select the Apply Fleck tool. Now, hover your imp over the smoke and hold R2. The flecks will change. That's better. Let's inspect it now using the grab cam. Grab it with R1. And while you're grabbing, spin around it with the left or right stick. The paint strokes look a bit flat, don't they? You can only see them well from certain angles. We can make it a bit more billowy and three-dimensional using the Impasto tool. In the Style menu, select the Impasto tool, then hold R2 to apply it to the smoke. Watch as the individual flecks of the painting become more three-dimensional. To see it better, use the grab cam to spin around the smoke again. You can also press undo and redo to compare the smoke with and without Impasto. Now that you've mastered Impasto, the last style tool we're going to use is the Ruffle tool. The Ruffle tool icon looks like a lot of lines going in different directions. It will randomly rotate the flecks so they're not as orderly. It works in the same way as the other two tools. Select it with X, then use R2 to apply it. And switch the tool to subtractive by pressing triangle. Ruffle makes quite a difference, doesn't it? Why not see if you can animate the smoke using the Flow tool in Effects mode? When you're happy, go to the next step of the tutorial. Now that the scene is looking good, we should make Connie's cottage look more welcoming for her. We can do that using something called the Glow tool. So head back to the Modes menu and into Coat mode. The Glow tool has an icon that looks like a little sun. Select it with X, then move your view over to the cottage for a closer look. Now position your view so that you can see the door and the window of the cottage. Then hold R2 over the window in the door to make it glow. Go on, give it some welly. Whoa, that's too bright. Let's press triangle to make the tool subtractive, then use R2 to reduce the glow. Maybe you could try tinting the window to change the colour of the light. See what you think. Have a play with the glow tool, and then move on to the next step when you're ready. The scene looks so alive now, and Connie's in love with her new home. It's hard to believe that this scene used to be all grey and blocky. Let's try something. How different did we actually make it? To see, we can use a special trick. Press square to open the menu, and then take a look in the Show Hide section. The Show Hide icon looks like an open eye. It can be found in most of the mode's menus. In the Show Hide menu, you can make all sorts of different objects visible or invisible. It only works in edit mode, so your scene will still look the same in play mode. Some of them are on by default, and some are switched off. Coat, Style and Effects is one of the options which is on by default. Its icon is a combination of the icons for all three of those modes. Try turning it off by pressing X over it. Wow, what an amazing difference. That shows you how powerful these tools really are. Using Coat, Style and Effects, you can make even the most boring block come alive. Practice using the tools and see what you can come up with. When you're finished, go to play mode in the options menu and walk Connie into her beautiful new home. This will complete the tutorial. It looks like Cuthbert is in a spot of bother. Connie needs our help to get across these platforms so she can rescue Cuthbert. So how about we add a little handmade animation to get her there? You don't need to go into play mode to see that Connie won't be able to make this jump. So let's animate that floating ledge down to her using an action recorder. Action recorders are super easy to use. Just stamp one in your scene, and it will record anything you move with the imp. And we mean anything. It'll even record you moving or tweaking gadgets. We'd better get going. Connie's getting really impatient. You know what cones are like. Go to the assembly menu, Press a square button if it's not already open. Then head to the Animate menu. The Animate icon is a clapperboard, that thing they use in movies before the director says, action. Now you get to be the director, and you can use these tools and gadgets to animate objects. Select the action recorder, the icon with a film strip and a plus sign on it. You'll now have an action recorder gadget on your imp. Stamp it down, somewhere near the floating ledge. A progress bar will appear at the top of the screen, along with a record button on the right. Also, your imp will turn red. This means you're ready to start recording. Don't worry, recording won't start until you begin moving or changing things. When you're ready, grab the floating ledge with R2. Move it slowly towards Connie using the motion sensor function or the sticks. You'll notice that the bar starts to fill, recording your every move. Don't worry, it's not a time limit. The bar fills up as a visual indicator of something being recorded, so take your time. When you let go of R2, the recording will pause. And you can use these tools and gadgets to animate objects. Select the action recorder, the icon with a film strip and a plus sign on it. You'll now have an action recorder gadget on your imp. Stamp it down, somewhere near the floating ledge. A progress bar will appear at the top of the screen, along with a record button on the right. Also, your imp will turn red. This means you're ready to start recording. Don't worry, recording won't start until you begin moving or changing things. When you're ready, grab the floating ledge with R2. Move it slowly towards Connie using the motion sensor function or the sticks. You'll notice that the bar starts to fill, recording your every move. Don't worry, it's not a time limit. The bar fills up as a visual indicator of something being recorded, so take your time. When you let go of R2, the recording will pause. If you move your view or use the grab cam, that won't be recorded. But if you've started time with R3, recording will continue when you let go of R2. That's why it's important to rewind or pause time before recording anything. That way, your action recorder only contains what you put into it. When you've finished recording, select the Stop Recording button in the context menu. Or you can use the shortcut, L1 and circle button to exit the action recorder. Your imp will go back to normal to show that recording has stopped. Click R3 to play back your animation. Handmade animations are always a bit wobbly, but practice makes perfect. Calibrating your imp can help when using the motion sensor function. Just hold your controller in a comfortable position, then hold the Options button for a few seconds. In the next step, I'll show you how to edit a recorded animation. Anything you record is stored in the action recorder gadget. If you hover over the floating ledge, the action recorder will pulse. Select the action recorder with X and dashed lines will appear on the objects animated with it. It'll also show the animation path. That's this dashed line. If you're not happy with your animation, redoing it is easy. First, rewind time with L3. Then hover over the action recorder gadget, hold L1 and press X. Now we can start recording again. Select the retake button in the context menu to replace the old animation. Now you can record a new one. Move the platform so it stops in front of Connie. You can undo actions you perform using the left directional button, but it won't undo any time that has passed. So it's better to use the retake button to undo animations. Move the floating ledge from the upper platform down to Connie. Don't worry if the animation's too slow or too fast. We can fix that later. Make sure you press the stop recording button when you're done. Spend a little time practicing with the action recorder. In the next step, I'll show you how to tweak your animation. Another way to edit animations is to tweak them. Hold L1 and press the square button over the action recorder gadget to open its tweak menu. Here you can see all the tweaks for the action recorder. By default, the playback mode is set to loop, so it plays the animation over and over again. But you can set them to play once, sustain, or to ping pong. Once will play the whole animation just one time. Sustain will play the animation for as long as the action recorder has power. If it loses power, it will stop. Then it will continue from that point when it's powered again. Ping pong plays the animation forward once, and then plays it in reverse. Then forward, then backwards, and so on. That sounds like a good option for our floating ledge. Select ping pong with X. Click R3 to start time and play the animation. You can also change the animation speed to make it slower or faster. Grab the slider with X and use your IMP to change the speed. If you want to explore more of the action recorder tweaks, you can. If you hover over any button for a few seconds, a more info tip will explain what that tweak does. To close the tweak menu, just hold L1 and press the circle button anywhere over it. And of course, you can undo any changes you make by pressing the left directional button. Switch to play mode to test your changes. When you're ready, come back to edit mode and start the next step. Now that Connie's made it up to the higher platform, how will she get back down to the next one? First, rewind time with L3. You probably already know about cloning objects, but do you know that you can clone their animations along with them? I'm sure you remember how to clone, but if not, just hold L1 and grab the ledge you animated with R2. Once you've made the clone, release L1, then move the ledge to the other side and release R2 to place it. Not only did you clone the ledge, but you also cloned its animation. Click R3 to start time. Now we just need to flip it so that it moves in the correct direction. First, make sure you rewind time. Grab the platform with R2. Then click L3 to flip it horizontally. Depending on where you grabbed it, you might have to move it closer to the other platform after flipping. You may also need to realign it with triangle before releasing R2 to put it back down. Now click R3 to start time, and the platform should move in opposite directions. Both animations are stored in the same action recorder. So if you retake or delete the action recorder, it will affect both animations. Now go into play mode and see if Connie can make it across both gaps. Switch back to edit mode when you're ready to move on. Now let's get Connie to Cuthbert and get them through the door. I've placed a shiny helper cube. Let's call it Cuthbot. That holds up the next platform, but it's not very animated at the moment. To get it to walk back and forth towards the exit, we need to use Record Possession. It allows you to possess puppets and record a performance with them. Open the Assembly menu, then go to the Animate menu. Select Record Possession. It's the button with the sock puppet icon. Your imp can now possess the puppets in the scene. In the Context menu, you'll see the Count-In button. When this is selected, you'll get a 3-second count-in before recording starts. Press R2 over the Cuthbot to possess the puppet and start the countdown. When the count reaches 0, the possession recorder begins recording. Unlike the action recorder, it records constantly. So time will be recorded even when the cube isn't moving. The countdown. When the count reaches 0, the possession recorder begins recording. Unlike the countdown. Get a 3-second count-in before recording starts. Press R2 over the Cuthbot to possess the puppet and start the countdown. When the count reaches 0, the possession recorder begins recording. Unlike the action recorder, it records constantly. So time will be recorded even when the cube isn't moving. Walk the Cuthbot around the obstacles to the final platform. Pause for a moment, turn around, then walk back to where the Cuthbot started. Starting and ending at the same place will help to make the animation loop smoothly. Press the circle button to depossess. You'll notice that the recording pauses when you depossess. Select Stop Recording in the context menu to exit the possession recorder. Once you've stopped recording, click L3 to rewind time, then R3 to start time, and watch what you've recorded. In the last step, I'll show you how to edit the recorded possession. You may have noticed a possession recorder gadget has appeared next to the Cuthbot. When you're using Record Possession, this gadget appears the moment you press the Stop Recording button. Select it with X to view the animation path. The Possession Recorder gadget also lets you edit and tweak the animation. Hold L1 and press X over the Possession Recorder to scope in and edit it. Just like the action recorder, you can choose to retake the animation by selecting the button in the context menu. To stop editing the possession recorder, select Stop Recording in the context menu. Or hold L1 and press the circle button to quickly scope out. You can also tweak the possession recorder with L1 and the square button. It has exactly the same options as the action recorder. Experiment with the recorder and the different tweak options. Remember, you can see more info about the tweak settings by hovering over them for a few seconds. Close the tweak menu by pressing L1 and the circle button anywhere over it. Once you're done editing, switch over to play mode to test out the completed scene. Then Connie can navigate to the last platform and help Cuthbert through the door to complete the tutorial.
It's a beautiful day in the Dreamiverse, so Cuthbert's heading out for a stroll. It's a hard life being a cube. But Connie can't resist a practical joke, so she's dreamt up a spooky surprise for Cuthbert. She's gonna need your help to pull off this hair-raising prank. With a little lighting and atmosphere, we can transform this scene. But let's do a bit of redecorating first. Go to the Assembly menu and select the Search button with X. I've prepared a little collection of eerie elements for you to use. Open up the collection with X. Start by stamping a moon in the sky. Then stamp as many gravestones, crows and flaming skulls as you want. Just make sure you don't block the path. And don't stamp any spooky doors. We won't need one until later on. Out for but Connie atmosphere. Let's do a bit of read. I've prepared block the path. And don't stamp any spooky doors. We won't need one until later on. These spindly trees are made from paint strokes, which means they don't cast shadows. Delete them with the triangle button and replace them with the spooky tree in the collection. Once you're happy with the spook levels, move on to the next step, where I'll show you how to change the lighting in the scene. To make the sky look like it's nighttime, we can use a sun and sky gadget. Go to the Assembly menu and select Gadgets. Take a look in the cameras and lighting section. Here's where you'll find the Sun and Sky gadget. Its icon is a sun and a cloud. Select it with X and then stamp one above the garden using R2 or X. We only need one, so unequip the gadget with Circle once you've stamped it. Sun and Sky looks quite different to most gadgets. It's round instead of square, and it also has these two gizmos attached to it. Unlike most gadgets, the Sun and Sky gizmos are always visible. The ball on top of the gadget represents the sky image that's projected around the scene. Grab it with R2 to move the sky image, or hold L2 to rotate it using the motion sensor function or the sticks. Look at how the sky changes. The smaller gizmo controls the sun brightness, position and size. Grab the sun gizmo with R2. The sun gets brighter the closer it is to the sky gizmo. You can also move the sun around the gadget to change its position in the sky. This also changes the direction of the sunlight. The sun is the main light source in the scene. You can resize the sun using the up and down directional buttons while hovering over the gizmo. Resizing the sun doesn't affect its brightness, it just makes it appear larger or smaller in the sky. Try out the gizmos and get a feel for how they change the sky. You can always undo any changes with the left directional button. Start the next step when you're ready to continue. Using gizmos lets us quickly experiment with different sun and sky settings. But for some deeper control, we can use the gadget's tweak menu. Hover over the gadget, hold L1, then press square to open its tweak menu. The Sun and Sky tweak menu has two pages, one for the sun and one for the sky. The first page is Sun Properties. It has all the settings we changed with the gizmo, as well as a few options that are only available in the tweak menu. Sun Visible determines whether the sun can be seen in the sky, and Cast Shadows controls whether its light casts shadows. We're creating a night sky, so deselect Sun Visible. It's the button with the eye icon. Hiding the sun doesn't turn it off completely, though. It'll still emit light in the scene, even when it's not visible, you just won't see it in the sky. You can change the colour of the sun using the colour picker. Hover over the colour picker and you'll see a ring around the edge and a triangle in the centre. Grab the ring with X and move the dial to change the colour. Grab the triangle in the middle to change the shade. A bluish purple should set the scene nicely. It's starting to feel a lot more like nighttime now. In the next step, I'll show you how to adjust the sky. If you've closed the Sun and Sky tweak menu, open it up again with L1 and square. The second page of the tweak menu, Sky Properties, contains all the options for editing the sky. Its icon is a cloud. Select it with X. The tweak menu gives you more options than the gizmo. The first slider picks an image for the sky. Cycle through them by pressing the up and down directional buttons. Choose one that fits the gloomy scene. Use the sky gizmo to rotate the sky image. Find a position you like. The sky is made of flecks. You'll know all about flecks if you've played the painting tutorial. You can pick a style for the sky using the Sky Fleck type slider. The next two sliders control sky brightness and saturation. If you turn the brightness down to 0, your sky will be pitch black. But if you make it a bit brighter, you'll still be able to see some of the sky's colour and detail. To change the colour of the sky, you can use the colour picker. It works just like the one we use to change the sun colour. Grab the outer ring with X to change the colour, then grab the triangle in the middle to change the shade. But if you've set the sky brightness or saturation to 0, you won't see any changes to the sky colour. Experiment with the tweak menu settings and create a spooky night sky. Then start the next step when you're ready to continue. When creating a dark scene, it can be tricky to see what's going on. You could end up completely lost in a scene. If you do find yourself stumbling around in the dark, there's a useful guide you can use, which will temporarily turn off all the moody lighting. Go to the Assembly menu, then select Guides with X. Look for Studio Lighting, then select it with X to turn it on. That's temporarily turn off all the moody lighting. Go to the Assembly menu, then select Guides with X. Look for Studio Lighting, then select it with X to turn it on. That's better, isn't it? Now we can see everything properly again. Studio lighting fills the scene with a bright, ambient light. Any lighting, grading or fog will be disabled so you can see exactly where everything is and what it looks like. Deselect the studio lighting button to turn all your atmospheric gadgets back on. Studio lighting is only active in edit mode, so the scene will still be dark and spooky when we go into play mode. When you're ready to continue, go back to edit mode and start the next step. The Sun and Sky gadget isn't the only way to light a scene. You might have noticed that there's a light gadget in the scene. Light gadgets can be used to create more sophisticated lighting, or to illuminate specific areas or objects. If you can't see it properly, just check that you don't have studio lighting switched on. Grab the light with R2 to move it around. Or grab it with L2 and use the motion sensor function to rotate it. You can add more lights to the scene from the assembly menu. Go to the Gadgets menu, then open Cameras and Lighting. Select the Light gadget with X and stamp one in your scene, then press Circle to drop the gadget from your IMP. If you select the light with X, you'll reveal its gizmo. This cone-shaped gizmo shows the angle and range of the light. Hover your IMP over the edges of the cone and grab them with R2. Move your IMP to widen the angle or extend the range of the light. You can grab the white dot at the end of the cone to change the range, angle and direction all at the same time. You can move and rotate the whole light independently of the gadget by grabbing the positional gizmo with R2 or L2. When lighting a scene, it's important to consider how the player will see it. If you pull back from the garden, you'll see that there's a camera gadget in the scene. Switch over to play mode to see how the scene looks through that camera. Having a defined viewing angle can help inform your lighting choices. So keep in mind the camera angle when you're setting up your lights. Try editing your lights using the gizmos to illuminate an area of your scene. Of course, the gizmos aren't the only way to edit lights. Like everything else, lights can also be tweaked. We'll take a look at that in the next step. So let's take a look at the Light Tweak menu. Hover your IMP over a light in the scene, hold L1, then press square. Lights can either be spot or diffuse. Spotlights illuminate in a specific direction, whereas diffuse lights cast in all directions. Light gadgets are set to be spotlights by default. But you can easily change their type by selecting the diffuse button. For this scene, it's better if we stick to using spotlights though. Notice the spotlight has tweak sliders for beam range and beam angle. These sliders do the same thing as the gizmos we used in the last step, but they give you more precise control. The fade angle slider changes the softness of the spot. At 0%, the spot will have a sharp edge. As you increase the slider, the edge will become softer. Deselecting the Cast Shadows button will stop the light from casting shadows. A very useful feature, but not for our spooky garden, as shadows will add to the overall atmosphere. The last two sliders, Use Image and Image Blur, allow you to project an image with the light. Images can be used to break up the light and add texture, making it look like it's coming through clouds or trees. Hover over the Use Image slider and use the up and down directional buttons to cycle through the images. Find one that suits the scene. This one looks good. The Image Blur slider can soften the image for a more subtle effect. When you've finished tweaking the light, close the tweak menu using L1 and circle. Now you've set up one light, you can clone it and use it in other parts of the scene. Think about where light would naturally be coming from in the scene, the moon or the fires, for example. When you've finished lighting your scene, head back to edit mode for the next step, where I'll show you how to add fog. Now we're going to literally add some atmosphere to the scene using a fog gadget. Close any tweak menus you may have open and press circle to deselect everything in the scene. Open the assembly menu. Press square if it's closed. Select gadgets, then cameras and lighting. The fog gadget icon looks like a cloud. Select it with X. We'll use this gadget to create some low-lying mist. How about around one of the gravestones? Once you've done that, press circle to drop the gadget from your imp. To edit the fog, we'll use its gizmos. Select the gadget with X to reveal them. The zone shows you the area that will be foggy. You can grab the zone with R2 to extend it. Look closely and you'll notice that the fog gadget actually has two zones. The outer zone is the fog's fall-off zone. To adjust the fall-off, you'll need to hold L1 before grabbing the edges of the zone. Have a go now. Hold L1, then grab the zone with R2 to edit the fall-off zone. In the fall-off zone, the fog becomes gradually less and less dense until it's completely dissipated. Extend it to make the fog fade away gradually, or pull it in to have a tight ball of fog instead. Above the gadget, you'll find a position or gizmo. Use it to move the zone independently of the gadget. In the next step, we'll tweak the fog to change its colour and density. The fog is so thick I can barely see Connie. Let's see if we can improve its look in the Tweak menu. Hold L1, then press square over the gadget. The Fog's Tweak menu has two pages, Properties and Zone Size. On the Properties page, use the Fog Density slider to thin out the fog a little. There's also a colour picker if you want to change the colour of the fog. Adjusting the various noise sliders is another way of changing the fog's appearance. Increasing noise strength will vary the density of the fog, making it appear patchier. The noise scale makes the patches larger or smaller, and the noise speed slider adds movement to the fog for a billowing look. There's also a slider to add glow to the fog. Add just a tiny bit of glow to make the fog look like it's catching the light. Now let's look at what the Zone Size tab has to offer. Select it at the top of the Tweak menu. You can use the sliders on this page to adjust the zone size and zone fall-off, just like you could with the zones themselves. You can also change the shape of the zone in the Tweak menu. Change the zone's shape to cube, then use the sliders or the gizmos to create a layer of ground fog. Doesn't that look good? In the next step, we'll add some colour grading and effects. The garden is looking very spooky now. The finishing touches will be to add some grading and effects. Grade and effects changes the look of the whole scene. It's a bit like adding a photo filter. Let's take a look. Open the assembly menu. Press square if it's closed. In cameras and lighting, look for the grade and effects gadget. The icon is an instant photo with some sparkles on it. Select it with X, then stamp one anywhere in your scene. There are no gizmos for this gadget, so open its Tweak menu to explore the settings. Grade and Effects is a powerful gadget with a handful of Tweak menu pages. The first page, Light and Colour, has settings for brightness, contrast and saturation. Try using the sliders to refine the nighttime look of the scene. If the grass still looks a bit too green, we can fix that by easing off the saturation. Use the brightness and contrast settings to bring out the shadows. Ooh, I'm getting chills. Everything in Grade and Effects changes the look of the scene in some way. You'll be able to figure out what most things do just by experimenting with them. Take a look through the rest of the Tweak menu to see the gadget's full potential. On the colour tinting page, you can individually tint the shadows, midtones and highlights of the scene. Screen effects add filmic touches like vignette, lens flare or grain. When it comes to grading and effects, there's no right or wrong answers. It's all about creating a look that suits your scene. Most of the time, less is more, but it can be fun to test the extremes too. Remember, you can always undo using the left directional button, and you can reset any tweak slider by hovering over it with your imp and pressing triangle. Or use the studio lighting guide to hide all the effects. To complete the tutorial, you'll need to stamp the spooky door in the scene. You can find it in the tutorial collection. Once you've placed the door, head into play mode. Walk Connie through the spooky door to see what Cuthbert thinks about the garden's new look.